Hello, everyone, and welcome to Quick Slants with Bethel University head football coach Steve Johnson. Quick Slants is a program where you, the fans, get to ask the Bethel coach questions about the Royals, football or sports in general, or just seek the coach's wisdom about life events that are going on. In this month's episode, the coach discusses with us some team updates, including updates on recruiting. He discusses who he believes will be the top 3 teams in the MIAC next year, and the coach tells us if he has any New Year's resolutions he'd like to share. So let's get right to Quick Slants. So let's welcome back Coach Johnson this week. Coach, first of all, do you have any team updates you'd like to provide for us?
We had a good Christmas break. The guys are we've got quite a few kids that study for J term and overseas, and they're having a great experience doing that. And then our guys that are on campus are working in the weight room and helping us in recruiting, inviting kids on campus to get a feel for the culture and see if this is a place where they want to spend their time growing as far as getting ready for the next chapter.
Well, let's talk a little bit about recruiting for a moment. First of all, what are the areas that you really try to spend most of your time in when you're recruiting?
You mean geography?
Yes, yeah. There's specific areas you track more than others?
Well, we recruit to our culture. We have an elite university with elite sports and football, and but more important than those things, although those are important. More important than those is getting the right fit, and that's not geographic incumbent. Minnesota. Most of our kids are from Minnesota, but we've got them from all over. We had a recruiting event a little while back where we had Colorado, Texas, California, Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska, and Minnesota kids at it, and so it's kind of all over the place.
You talked a little bit about it's the character, it's the person that you're looking for. So what kind of things are you specifically looking for in a recruit to make sure that they're the right fit for you?
Well, I think the character is a piece that we're all growing in our character. I'm like 100 years old and I'm still working on those things. But guys that have just express a desire to be at a place like this, whereas we're Bethel's a Christian school, not just in the catalog or not just in name, but it's a place where our foundation is built off of the King of Kings sent His Son for us so we could run. And so if that's an important part about why you are grateful and have a kind of a reason for being the kind of man that you want to be, then this is a great place for you to go and grow, and that not only helps the young person, but it also grows our culture.
Well, let's head to our fan questions this week. We first of all begin with Jenny from St. Paul. She says, you have been at Bethel for a lot of years, but do you still try to keep in touch with your players after they graduate?
Yeah. We have a Bethel Royals Football.com is a website that a lot of those guys are on. We have a BGC, kind of a booster club that's more of a church than it is a booster club, but it's called the BGC, and it's a Bethel Gridiron Club. And just a lot of guys come back and forth, and sometimes it's for counseling, and sometimes it's for a lot of different things. But we have a great cloud of witnesses out there, and the closeness that we kind of attain while the guys are on campus, it's pretty hard to not just have those guys in your heart for life. So it's a pretty cool thing.
And next up, we have Ted from St. Paul. He says, how do you feel about the depth of your team for next season?
I think we're very excited about it. We've got very, very strong our senior class. We have some just great leaders, but our juniors to be, the seniors coming up, great leadership group. The guys that are sophomores now going to be juniors is a phenomenal class, and our next class, our freshmen now that are going to be sophomores, a great class, and the depth and the strength of those classes is very strong. We've got a lot of those guys that are very meaningful players on our team right now, and then the underneath people are terrific too. And so we're excited about that. And then the class we have coming in looks to be terrific, and a lot of those things you can't discuss until guys have made a decision. But we're very excited about both the ability and the hearts of those guys.
Andy would like to know from you, how pivotal is it to having the right kind of offensive line to be able to run a specific kind of offense?
That's real pivotal. There's a balance. That's a great question, because there's a balance of, each position within our offense. The guards, the tackles, maybe we want them to be able to run a little bit, and the guards have to have some girth, but everybody's got to have quickness. The game is a game of quickness and or speed. Sometimes when they talk about speed, you kind of think about the burners at receiver or back or whatever, but there's a little bit of a speed factor in your offensive line, even as far as quickness of feet and maybe even D-line too. But, we need a center who's pretty sharp. And so there's a lot of different components to that to where a young man will fit. And then at the same time, you kind of want your 5 best guys in there. And, we have a guy named Nolan Richardson who can play, and has played every position up front. And there's other times there's a guy that, we just need to hone him in at left guard. You know what I mean? And so it kind of depends on the kid, and it is. But as he said, it's a little bit incumbent on what we want to do offensively, and then what the kid's gifts are, and then where you can really feel comfortable, because I don't think people realize how sharp you have to be an offensive lineman. Those guys are big dogs, and they've got to make some split-second decisions, while they're about to get hit in the nose, and so they've got to be really tough guys, but really brilliant as far as the game is concerned.
Frank from St. Paul would like to know, who do you think will be the top 3 teams in the MIAC next season?
Bethel, and Bethel. I think the same old. But when you say top 3, I think St. Thomas, St. John's, and Bethel have shared the last 10 titles, pretty evenly. In fact, the Tommies are the class of it right now, and followed by the Johnnies by an inch away, and then Concordia is in there, and Gustavus is growing. But we just do not have. All of our teams are. I mean, it's really a cool thing about our league. I think it's testament to why we do well in the playoffs and so on and so forth. But Augsburg is good. Hamlin coming on like crazy. Did a great job, not just last year, but for the last 4 or 5, where they've really grown. And Carleton is excellent. Carleton has some struggles because they're not as deep, and part of that's a little bit because of their school and their needs academically. That's really hard for them to be real deep, and so they could get a guy injured, and even between Bethel and St. John or Thomas, if we get a guy hurt and they get a guy hurt, their backup maybe. They may have a little better depth than this, but then it's even incumbent on the position. But the same thing would be true at a Carleton, where they lose a guy, it can be more devastating than it would be at Bethel, and way, way, way more devastating than it would be at St. Thomas.
Stanley says, Coach, first of all, big fan. Is it hard to be in a profession where 99% of coaches get fired?
Excuse me, that is kind of a hard thing. I don't think people realize I don't want to say pressure, and I don't want it to sound like a soft thing, but the expectations are really high, and most coaches that are healthy are, I'm not as worried about the school firing me as I am, kind of meeting your own expectations and stuff like that. But there's definite, a lot of people know. A lot of people know when you're not doing so good, where there's, quite a few professions where, nobody has to know, and you can kind of grow through some things without being in the public. And, I say that, Bethel's an awful lot smaller than University of Minnesota / moving right up the ranks to Ohio State and Clemson and all those guys. And so there's a lot of pressure in there. Part of that's fun. Part of that's unreasonably goofy. sometimes, coaches, I struggle a little bit because I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg, but when I was growing in my career, felt a little bit bad. When I teach classes now, I talk about this a lot. I felt a little bit bad that coaches are at a place kind of looking to where they can go next instead of, we have a saying to fertilize your own lawn, do great where you're at, and the grass will be as green as you need it. And, if you're called somewhere else, go. But sometimes coaches are looking to move, and then, sometimes administrations move you. And so it seems like a merry-go-round kind of. But it's a great profession, but there are some things that are a little irritating.
Heading into professional football, Craig from Minneapolis would like to know, who do you see winning the Super Bowl?
I don't know. I just got through the national championship with Clemson. That was an incredible game, and Alabama's going to win it, but they might not get in. So, I love Aaron Rodgers. I like the Pack. I think Seattle's really good. I think the best defenses are very fun. I really like Pittsburgh. If they're playing great defense, and their quarterback and running back Ballard, they're terrific. So, and then the Patriots are pretty hard to beat. So, I don't know. I guess I think it might be the Seahawks and Patriots or Pittsburgh, and then pick them. I don't know.
I never thought
I'm not as good at the NFL as I ought to be. I think they're all pretty much alike.
I never thought I would hear a Bears fan say, I like the Pack, but okay.
Yeah. Well, you won't hear a Bears fan say that if the Bears are relevant, but, I have to pick the people that are in. I like to watch Aaron Rodgers play.
Understandable. Our next up, we have Sean from Brainerd, who says, how do you feel about seeing professional athletes punching walls after games? Is this just a competitive guy or a big baby?
I think people, somewhere in between there, I think somebody's really frustrated, they punch a wall. It's better than punching a person. It's kind of dumb. Taking the frustrations out it's a tough thing, but I don't see anything competitive about it. I think sometimes somebody throws a fit and, goes crazy and stuff, and we call that competitive, or that seeps in there. And I'm not saying that you mean it that way, but I just think that a great competitor is somebody who never quits and doesn't, is in unbelievable control of their emotions. You know what I mean? Instead of the exact opposite. And we tend to think somebody cares a lot because they punch something, and I just don't think you can. I think it's kind of short-sighted to measure it that way. So I wouldn't say it's competitive to punch a wall. And I can't cast stones about a big baby because I'm a big baby, although I don't punch walls. So,
Oh, a little hockey for you. Derek from St. Paul says, I know a lot of people have talked or have asked you about the Wild getting over the hump. They look like real contenders this year. Do you agree?
I do. I think that Wild is good. I think that Boudreau has been a good coach for them. I think they're a real deal. I think they're awfully close before, and I think that Stahl has made a big difference, and I think Dubnyk is a special player, and so when you have those kinds of things, you got a good chance. And they're behind in the numbers from the Blackhawks, but really they're leading the whole league as far as points, because they have a couple 3 games in hand, and they're only a point behind. So I think the Wild and the Blackhawks are. They're really that's going to be really a fight to the finish, and I know Montreal's great on the other end, and there's some really good teams, so it's going to be a fun year that way.
Talking about him, Steve from Richfield would like to know, how confident are you in Devan Dubnyk during the playoffs?
I don't know that I don't know that I'm confident in him. I'm confident in Corey Crawford because he's been in them a whole bunch, but Dubnyk hasn't been in very many. But I think that, you don't get good in the playoffs, and I don't think you get bad either. So I think that I think Dubnyk is one of the best goalies, and I just like the fire that he brings, and so I think I think he'll be just fine.
Ian from Minneapolis asks of you. He says, I found that Columbus Blue Jacket streak to be amazing. How hard is it to win that many games in a row, do you think?
Ugh, I think that's an amazing deal, and it makes Brian Saad is one of my favorite Blackhawks ever, and I'm still sad that he had to leave. I'm sad that Saad had to leave the Blackhawks, but I think Columbus is they're a fun team, and they're really, really good. And I think hockey is a little bit like that. You know, sometimes the Hawks will get on a streak and they'll think, oh, they're the greatest team ever, and then they'll start to stink a little bit again. And so you just kind of have to wonder. It's a teeny bit like baseball. You kind of go through some ups and downs, and you got to peak at the right time, and it really calls you to be great with your base.
Ben from Rockford would like to know from you, do you think it is a concern that the Blackhawks American Hockey League team doesn't really have much in the way of big-time prospects?
It's probably bad, but you know, I think that every year is different, and the Hawks have had to kind of manage they've got an awful lot of good young players that are up, you know, and whether they're ready or not is inconsequential because their salary cap is so constricting that you know, they may, you know, maybe they'd have some better players, you know, down at that next level if they didn't have so many of them up with the big club.
Carl from Chicago would like to know if you're still basking in the glory of the Cubs winning it all.
Yeah, it's about 72 days now. That's really fun. Yeah, and I'm excited for spring training to start. It seems like a couple of weeks ago I was screaming about the Cubbies, and then for Christmas I got some Cub socks and stuff with a W on them, so those are good. I wear them every day, and people are starting to ask me to change. But pretty exciting with the Cubbies. I love it that they won, but I like it even more that they're all together and they're back, and I think they're gonna be good for a while. I'm gonna miss Dexter Fowler because I think he's a first-class guy, a God guy, and I think he was a bigger catalyst for them than people think. But it'll be fun to watch Schwarber play the whole year.
Speaking of Fowler, Jim from Moline would like to know if it bothered you that he signed with the Cardinals.
Very much, but you know, I really respect the Cardinals, and I wouldn't go so far as to say I like them, but I respect them. Our athletic trainer Justin Byers he's a St. Louis Cardinal fan, and he even worked in our organization as a trainer for a while with Pujols, and so we're kind of going at it, and he just smirks because they have like 104 titles, and I'm basking in the one. But I think the Cardinals are going to be good, and I think Fowler's going to be good for them and their clubhouse. I love their manager. I just a few guys I can't stand over there, but it's the Mets that I'd like to fall off into the ocean.
Our next question comes from a person who identified herself as struggling. She says, I am really struggling with school and personal issues. How do you count it all pure joy when life is so hard?
Life's not going to get easy, so you have to accept that and keep leaning into it. And I think that you count it all joy is what we have to do, and it's a faith piece that it's going to turn into, that it's going to produce in you an endurance. So if you quit, then don't count on endurance being grown in you in character. But you know, you kind of need to, we talk about do the right thing over and over and over, and it's going to be hard. And pretty soon stuff that used to be hard isn't that hard anymore because you get used to leaning into it. And that's a hard, I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying, but I think to count it pure joy means, it doesn't mean to go happy and be silly, but it does mean, it's basically say have faith that fighting through this adversity is going to produce in you an endurance. And the Bible, in James, it says it's going to perfect you, and the word perfect in the Greek there means mature. You're going to grow up. And that's just something that you have to count on. And I think that as a Christian, I think that as a regular person, when you fight through hard things, you're gonna come out with some character, but you might not always you might not always notice it, and I don't think it's it's our kind of our entitlement that says that we get to see what it is exactly that comes from hard things. You just have to know that it's true, and I think the other part about that, you can't count it pure joy when you encounter trials if you don't value what's going to come out of it. If you don't really want to have endurance and you don't really want to grow up, then you're never going to have any joy.
That's great advice. Hank from Crystal says that Friday the 13th is tomorrow, so what are you superstitious about?
Nothing.
Nothing at all. That's what we like to hear. And our last question.
Yeah, I try not to be, so once in a while I'll wear my lucky socks if the Cubs are playing, but nothing of, I really think it's something to denounce. It's bull.
Our last question is from Brad from St. Paul, who'd like to know if you made any great New Year's resolutions.
That's another thing. I did make a New Year's resolution to be in good enough shape so that I didn't bother me when everybody's in the health club. When I'm trying to work out on the second week of January, I made a New Year's resolution to not be mad at all those people who are just going to be in there for 2 weeks and then quit.
That's a good one to have.
Sorry for being a smart aleck. Yeah.
Not at all. Well, thanks for joining us this month, Coach.
Okay, Coach.
We want to thank Coach Johnson for joining us on Quick Slants this month. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Bethel coach, please send them to us at stevejohnson@minorleaguesportsreport.com. That's Steve Johnson at minorleaguesportsreport.com. The show will be recorded on the first Thursday of each month, so we ask that you please have your questions to us by the Wednesday prior to that. I'm Rob Pannier, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we'll see you next time on Quick Slants.